Hi, this is Stelios from the Tesseract Academy, and in this video we're going to be talking about a great tool for analyzing token economies, that of agent-based modeling. So the first thing we need to ask is, what is agent-based modeling about? So agent-based modeling is a type of modeling where we simulate each individual in a system, which could be an economy or a system related to ecology. For example, let's say a forest or some other physical environment. We simulate each individual separately. And we make the assumption that each individual is autonomous and agents can be heterogeneous. So this means that we create simplified versions of real entities inside a computer. This agent-based modeling had existed since 1940s, but started to become popular during the 90s when processing power started to become more easily available. So why is this a useful concept? Because at first glance it might sound quite complicated. Why would you want to take a system, let's say an economy, and model each individual separately? So in most cases, modeling takes place through mathematical equations. In order to do that successfully, we need to make lots of abstractions. And in mathematical modeling, sometimes we have to make way too many assumptions. Which means that in systems where we can't make the right assumptions or where our assumptions are not correct, then we either can't build a model or our models are useless. The beauty of agent-based modeling is that we don't really have to think too much or too hard about how to set an abstract model. We just start with a common intuition about the system and we start encoding the rules in a piece of software, and then we just simulate the environment, and after many simulations, we receive the results and then we start analyzing the behavior of the system. And why is this relevant for blockchain and ICOs? Well, through the advent of blockchain and the rise of ICOs, we saw many startups creating artificial economies, tokenized economies. And in these economies, I've talked about this in another video and also in a blog post, there are many questions such as, how do I reduce the volatility of my economy? How do I control inflation? How do I fight against speculation? And its token economy is a bit special in the sense that they have their own artificial rules. They're not like the real economy. So it's not easy to just take theorems and models from the real economy and transfer them as they are to a token economy. So agent-based modeling can be a very useful tool to model this kind of economies without really having to overthink about how to create a mathematical abstraction around them. So we're going to go through some successful models, some famous models in agent-based modeling. One of the most prominent ones is Schelling's segregation model. So Schelling was a social scientist. He was interested in studying segregation in urban environments, that is, in cities. And this is a very, very beautiful model that demonstrates the power of agent-based modeling. So Schelling set up this model of an artificial city where the city is represented by square grids, and each grid is populated either by one of the people in the red tribe or one of the people in the blue tribe. And finally, some grids are not populated. So the individuals in the two tribes, they have their own preferences as to where they want to live. These preferences, they mainly relate around who is around them. So it's called in the simulation similarity threshold, but in the real world it's a bit like a racism threshold in a sense, right? So people want to be around other people around them, or they might dislike to be around people that are different to them. And effectively, Schelling studied the different behaviors of the system and the different thresholds of similarity. What he observed is that even in situations where the individuals in the tribes really don't mind if many of their neighbors are of a different tribe, we still see segregation occurring. So segregation in urban environments does not mean that the people segregated or gathered in an area, at least according to Schelling's model, they have a strong dislike from people which they consider to be different, but rather even if they have a small preference for their own tribe in a sense, then we can still see this kind of ghettos and communities emerging. So let's go and see this simulation in action. So this is Schelling's segregation model. It's a simulation created by Stanford. You can see the link in the slides. And here we see the different parameters around the simulation. The main parameter is this one, the similar, and we can just reset and then start the simulation. And we see that even when an individual requires that only 30% of their neighbors are similar to them, we still start seeing this kind of segregated communities form. Let's try to increase the threshold and see what happens. So we see that when we increase the similarity threshold, these communities, they form stronger and stronger clusters.